Happy Election Day, everyone. It is another edition of the Sports Wrap with Michael Kravetz. I want to remind everyone that polls will still be open here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, till 8 o'clock. So go out there, vote, either for Barack Obama or Mitt Romney. I'm not going to promote anyone, so just make sure you go out and vote today, because it is important, and every vote does matter. But in today's show, I'll be talking about Pitt and Notre Dame, the Steelers, huge win over the Giants. Talk a little bit more about Pitt basketball, and that's pretty much it. So we're going to start off today's show. Normally with the Steelers we would, but got to start off with the classic triple overtime game on Saturday in South Bend, where the Pitt Panthers lost to the Notre Dame Fighting Irish 29-26. And this was one of the best games I've seen in a long time in Pitt history. The only bad thing was that they didn't come out with the win. They had a lot of opportunities to put the game away. They had a 20-6 lead in the fourth quarter, and they blew it. They were up 20-12 with about 5 minutes to go. Notre Dame was driving. They were inside the 10-yard line, and Everett Golson threw an interception to K1 Williams in the end zone. And what happens? I don't know why Paul Chryst does it, but he decides to pass on every single play after that. And what happens? Notre Dame gets the ball back. They go down and score a touchdown and get the 2-point conversion. All they needed to do was run the ball, and they could have run the clock out. And guess what? Ray Graham was running effectively. He had 172 yards. Russell Shell, on the other hand, 1 carry for 2 yards. But when you had Graham being effective like that, you had to run him. And even he said, I was a little surprised that we didn't run the ball, but I have faith in my offensive coordinator, Joe Rudolph. But bottom line is they didn't do what they needed to do, and that just goes to show you why they are a average team and why Notre Dame is a great team. Pitt fell to 4-5. Notre Dame still remained undefeated. So many good things for Pitt. Early on, they stayed with them defensively, didn't allow any touchdowns. They were able to get some points, field goals mostly. And they had the lead at halftime, and Tino Sunseri once again played an efficient game, but they just couldn't capitalize on Notre Dame's mistakes long enough into the game. Notre Dame they switched quarterbacks frequently. They started with Everett Golson, and they went to Tommy Rees, and everything was handed to Pitt pretty much, and they just couldn't come away with the win. It's like they're in Notre Dame, they just couldn't pull it out for some reason. If this game, the type of game, the way it was played at Pitt, I think Pitt would have pulled it out. But just because it was in Notre Dame, and Pitt being on the road, they couldn't pull it out. And in the overtimes, Kevin Harper, in the second overtime, they had the ball last. Notre Dame fumbled the ball. Pitt got it. So all Pitt needed to do is get a field goal and win. 33-yard field goal. It was from the right hash mark, so that is a difficult kick, and it just missed going through the uprights. It was about maybe a half a yard to the right, to the right field goal post. And the kicker is, which I just found out today, is that Notre Dame had 2 players lined up on special teams to block the field goal with the same jersey. It was a number 2 jersey. So the referees would have spotted that. That would have been a penalty on them. Would have moved the ball 5 yards closer, and I have a feeling Kevin Harper would have made the field goal. But that's his excuse. Those mistakes, they happen all the time in the game. And then, Pitt has the ball first in the third overtime. They make the field goal. They're up 26-23. But Notre Dame, it was bound for them to score, and Golson ran it in from the 1-yard line, and that sealed Pitt's fate. So it stinks that Pitt didn't get the win because they've had huge games where they couldn't come through. You remember the Cincinnati game at Heinz Field? They would have sent Pitt to the BCS title game, up by 21 at half, and they blow it. It's just games that this would have propelled Paul Chryst and a lot of future recruits probably would have came to Pitt, because this was that type of game that would have been that type of win for them, but they just couldn't get it done. So it's just it's rather disgusting, to say the least. I felt disgusted after the outcome of the game, because it was there, and Sinceri felt like it almost seemed in his post-game comments that he was blaming Harper. I mean, that's not the professional thing to do, because they had other chances to capitalize on the game, but it's frustration. That's probably why he made those comments, but you just got to hope, though, that Pitt will be able to take this game with some confidence, knowing that, hey, of all the teams that Notre Dame has played, we gave them the toughest game, and it was in Notre Dame. So Pitt did not get bullied. They were favored to lose by 17. They lost by 3. Excuse me. But bottom line is, now Pitt's 4-5. Next game, excuse me. The next game is on Friday night at Connecticut. Very winnable game. Connecticut's lost 4 in a row. Next Saturday, or 2 Saturdays from this one coming up, on the 24th, they have Rutgers coming in, who's undefeated in the Big East, and Pitt shows up at home against good teams, so that could be another game that they could win, and then their final game is at South Florida, which is another winnable game. So Pitt needs to basically win their last 3 games if they want to be in a bowl better than the BBVA Compass Bowl, because they end up going 6-6. They'll be lucky if they get to a bowl, but that'll be the level of bowl that they'll get to. So if they win out, they'll be 7-5, 4-3, probably be in 4th place in the Big East. That'll get them maybe to like a Tangerine Bowl, something that is, when you say the name of the bowl, it's not, you don't think in your head, oh my god, I can't believe a bowl is actually named that, like the GoDaddy.com bowl and all those, there might maybe a toilet bowl named in the future, but those types of bowls are ridiculous. So you hope that Pitt can make it to a respectable bowl game, and they depending on how they finish the year, they might be able to win the game. So I do see Pitt at least going 6-6. I expect them to beat South Florida and Connecticut. The Rutgers game will just be a toss-up for me right now. So depending on how they play against Connecticut, that'll determine if I think that they're going to end up winning out and going 7-5 for the year. But now we will move on to the Pittsburgh Steelers and New York Giants game on Sunday afternoon, and it was a good game. It was a really good game. Of course, there was the aftermath of Hurricane Sandy. Steelers didn't travel to Newark until Sunday morning. Many people thought, oh, maybe this will be a distraction for them. Well, to start off, the Steelers came out playing good on defense. Emmanuel Sanders was stepping up. He caught a touchdown pass. And there were a lot of questionable calls thereafter. And Steelers overcame it. They won the game 24-20. And this probably was their best game, I think, to date, because they beat a good team, a team that a lot of people think could make it to the Super Bowl once again, in the Giants. They beat them in New York. Now, a lot of people are saying, oh, the Giants players, they probably had a lot of stuff on their mind, too, with family and stuff, being affected and arrangements having to be made. Well, guess what? It's part of the game, and you have to play through it. And they almost won the game, and they played a horrible game. Eli Manning had 125 yards passing. That is the lowest amount of yards passing he's had since 2008. In the fourth quarter alone, the Giants -9 total yards. -9 yards. The Steelers' defense, this was their best game of the year. The cornerbacks, Keenan Lewis, Ike Taylor stepped it up. Ike Taylor got an interception. His first one in 12 games. They played to a level where, it's like, oh, this is a Super Bowl caliber team. When we beat the Giants, we're going to be regarded in that same manner. And a lot of players were joking, saying, oh, reporters were asking them, oh, so you guys are back. And they're like, well, we never left anywhere in the first place, so we're not back. We've been here all along. Now, on the bad side, though, there were 5 penalties for over 100 yards. A couple of 40-yard pass interference calls against Keenan Lewis, but he made up for it with a lot of pass deflections and broken up passes. So he's really developing into a solid number 2 corner. Lawrence Timmons and Lamar Woodley were causing havoc for Manning. There were only 2 sacks on him, 1 by each, but they were pressuring him a lot. And the defensive line did a tremendous job on Ahmad Bradshaw, less than 60 yards rushing. And it's very encouraging to see that this defense is still playing at a high, top-notch level. Even though they are getting older, but they're still playing the way the Steelers defense always has played. And I think the biggest possession for the defense in that game was late in the fourth quarter. The Steelers were up 24-20, trying to hold on to the lead. Less than 4 minutes. The Giants had it back at their 10-yard line. And 2 incompletions, and then a fumble by Manning. And the Giants recovered, but they had to punt it. And the Steelers just kept converting for first downs, so the Giants never got the ball back again. So you have to give kudos to the defense and as well as the offense, because in this game, Roethlisberger spread it around again. And granted, he had to do it without Chris Rainey and Antonio Brown. Brown had to leave the game because on a catch he made, on an incompletion, he lost his shoe and he hurt his left foot. He had a high ankle sprain, and Chris Rainey had to leave with broken ribs. He had a rib injury, so Ben was able to do it without 2 explosive players on offense. And Jericho Cotchery came in. He tied the lead for the team with receptions in the game. Mike Wallace stepped up. A quick little slant pass for about 3 yards. He turns it into a 51-yard touchdown. And Emmanuel Sanders showed up. And, Emmanuel Sanders, he had a couple of explosive punt returns when Rainey was not able to come back. And along with Rainey, he had a lot of good kick returns and punt returns in the game. The only bad thing, though, is that the Steelers were unable to capitalize on those long kick returns. But it's just really encouraging to see that these guys are stepping up and filling in when guys get injured. And they're performing almost at the same level. And once again, the running back situation for the Steelers, how can you be upset with it? Isaac Redman comes in, missing the last 2 games due to injury. Jonathan Dwyer had 2 straight 100-yard rushing games. Well, what does Redman do? He comes in, puts up 147 yards as well. And it's the first time since 2007 that the Steelers have had 2 running backs in 3 straight games run for over 100 yards. Back when Willie Parker did it twice, and then it was Najee Davenport. So that is very encouraging, because Redman, he was running all over the Giants' defensive line. And you have to credit the offensive line as well, because Adams, although he did let Pierre-Paul and Tuck inside for a couple sacks on Ben, he was just excellent with the run blocking, as well as Pouncey, Cologne, Starks, and Foster. I just thought there were moments when the Steelers' offensive line purely dominated the Giants' D-line. So you have to give credit once again to Sean Kugler and the offensive line, because they're really doing a great job. And Todd Haley, some of the calls that he made, I thought they were great calls. Now, on the other hand, there were some coaching calls that Tomlin made that were not in my favor, or I did not favor them whatsoever. When the score was 20-17 in the fourth quarter, I think about 8 or 9 minutes left, Steelers were lined up for a 20-yard field goal to tie the game. For some reason, they faked it. Drew Butler, the placeholder, tossed the ball over his shoulder to squeeze him. He got tackled for a loss of 1. I don't know why they were doing that, because I don't think you can pull that type of crap, yes, I'm calling it crap, on the road against the Super Bowl champion. And if you're going to go for it on 4th and 1, why not send the offense back out there, have Big Ben maybe try to run it, or even put Redman or Will Johnson in to run it? I didn't understand that. But luckily, the defense stopped the Giants on the next series, got it back, and that's when Redman scored the touchdown. And and you know what? I'll get to the bad calls right now. The refs made lots of horrible calls, and at a time, I was thinking, this has to be conspiracy. I mean, they're giving calls to the Giants. The one with the Ben he threw the ball and it landed on the ground, and Michael Boley returned it all the way for a touchdown. They reviewed it. They called it a touchdown. They said it was a fumble. But if you look closely, he pulled his arm back. It got hit. Umenyiora hit the ball, but he looked like he had possession when his arm was still going forward. So that would be an incomplete pass. They didn't see it that way. There was also another call when the Giants scored their first touchdown. He wasn't even in. And granted, it would have been third and goal, or would have been second and goal from the 1. His elbow was down before the ball crossed the goal line. Once again, the refs reviewed it, and they called it a touchdown. And then another huge play they called a pass interference call, or a helmet-to-helmet call on Ryan Clark hitting Victor Cruz in the end zone. But if you look closely, he hit him in his rib/shoulder area, and they said it was helmet-to-helmet. So I'm thinking they're going to flag Ryan Clark regardless now, so he just got better watch out for that. I just thought the calls were ridiculous, but thankfully the Steelers overcame it, and they proved that they are still a force to be reckoned with in the AFC. And you know what? Next week they're home Monday night against Kansas City. They're going to be without Brown, probably without Rainey, but looks like they're going to be getting Dwyer back. So you have Dwyer and Redman. It'll be a two-headed monster attack there, and Kansas City is probably the worst team, at least tied with Jacksonville right now in the NFL. So I think the Steelers should definitely win that game by at least 2 touchdowns. And if they don't, if they at least win by 10, I'll be satisfied. But if they only win by like a field goal or a touchdown, I'll be disappointed. You're at home. It's a Monday night. You should clobber the Chiefs because they are just a horrible, horrible team. But I do see the Steelers, though, beating the Chiefs because, like I said, with the exception of Dwayne Bowe, and even though Jamal Charles, still a playmaker, he was injured in the San Diego game, questionable for the game Monday. I don't see Kansas City winning, putting up much of a fight at all. So I'm going to take the Steelers in a big blowout victory. And then after that, it's a huge Sunday night game with Baltimore. Then at Cleveland, then we go back to Baltimore. And then the Steelers go back to Baltimore. So this division will be determined probably within these next 3 games after the Kansas City game. So, and personally, I think the Steelers are going to go on a roll, and I think they will end up winning this division because I just don't see Baltimore looking as sharp as the Steelers right now, especially without Ray Lewis and Dominique Foxworth. I don't see it. Or my mistake, without Ray Lewis or Ladarius Webb. So I think the Steelers, though, they're primed to make a push now. And I think they will definitely be in the playoffs now. Definitely seen that. And see, I told you, that game against Cincinnati, that was the momentum boost. And not a lot of reporters and analysts here said that was like that huge. Like they didn't say like, oh, this was a great win. But that was the momentum. That's where it started. Well, and now I guess we'll switch our attention to the Pitt Panthers. And they finished their second exhibition game last Friday against Hawaii-Hilo, and they dominated the game 77-45. And just some quick notes about that game. The starting lineup in the game, actually for both exhibition games so far, have been James Robinson, Steven Adams, Lamar Patterson, Talib Zanna, and Trey Woodall. Now, I'd be surprised if James Robinson gets the second guard position, but if he's playing that well, and which he has, I think he'll be a good addition to the starting lineup. You throw him in there with Woodall, Adams, Patterson, and then either J.J. Moore or Talib Zanna. That's a good starting 5 right there for Pitt. And in the game, Talib Zanna and J.J. Moore, they led Pitt with 13 points apiece. The freshman guard, James Robinson, he had 7 points, 5 assists to 1 turnover, so that's pretty good numbers for a freshman. And Steven Adams had another good game. So it's very promising, to say the least, that these might be the first time in Dixon's tenure there at Pitt. The 2 freshmen will be starting in the starting 5 for a game. So that'll be very interesting. And they open up against Mount St. Mary's on Friday. Like I said, I see Pitt's non-conference schedule. They have a really good chance of going undefeated. So I still expect them to do that. And once again, there was very little progress with the NHL and the labor negotiations. There have been optimistic talks, though. There have been a lot of optimistic people, though, over the past couple of days, thinking that negotiations they at least will talk more again. And they're hoping to have the hockey by Christmas, but Gary Bettman did announce last week that the Winter Classic in Detroit was canceled. It's going to be 110,000 people on hand at Michigan Stadium to watch Toronto and Detroit play, so that will be canceled. And you just hope that they can play. As long as they can play at least 50 games, I'll be happy. But if not, then they should just get rid of the season. And it's really a shame because it's definitely the least popular of the big 4 sports, and it's just going to even hurt it even more. So hopefully they get a deal done and we can start playing hockey because I miss watching Penguin games. But that'll do it, though, for today's episode. Remember to go out and vote today, Election Day. Next week, we'll be talking about Steelers game against the Chiefs. I'll probably be doing the show next Tuesday, once again. Pitt's game against Connecticut. Pitt's season opener against Mount St. Mary's. Any other news on the NHL talk. And any other, if there might be some news and notes in MLB free agency, maybe the Pirates will make a move or something, I'll be sure to discuss that. And just a reminder note that the Pirate season in review show, which I should have gotten to earlier, probably won't be getting to that until, I'm going to say, November 20th, 2 weeks from today. There'll be a whole show about the Pirates, and I'll still have my regular show during that week as well. So that'll do it, though. I'm Michael Kravetz, and you just listened to the Sports Wrap.